Hey everybody, Mr. Grove here. Today we are going to talk about the phylum Chordata and the class Aves. So this is going to be the birds. So some key features for the birds is, like reptiles, they have an amniotic egg. So this is a big deal. This is a waterproof egg, and we do not need to stay in a water environment for the egg to work. So just like reptiles could lay their eggs on land, so can birds. Another thing that is similar to reptiles on them is the scaled feet. So if we look at a bird's feet, you can see kind of the scales on it, similar to like a reptile. Unlike reptiles, we don't have teeth for birds. They've got beaks, but they do not have teeth. Their tails are usually significantly shorter. And probably the most obvious then is the forelimbs are going to be wings rather than legs. As far as the feathers go, so feathers are going to develop from follicles, and birds will actually molt their feathers. So just like reptiles will molt their skin, just like arthropods will molt their exoskeleton, birds will go through and molt their feathers. And that's why, like if you have a bird and you clip the wings, basically you're just cutting the tips off of the wings. It doesn't hurt them. It's like a haircut for you. But when they try and fly, they're a little uneven and they don't like that. And so they don't try and fly anymore. But after about a year, they will start to try it again. And so because they've molted those feathers you clipped, and you're going to have to clip them again because they can now start to fly. So molting their feathers is kind of a thing. They also have two different types of feathers, contour feathers and down feathers. So down feathers are these little wispy, high surface area, lots of very, very good insulation. This is what like baby chicks would have, trying to keep their warmth. But then as they get older, they will get their flight feathers or contour feathers. And that kind of gives them their shape, and that also allows them to fly. What's kind of an interesting thing is the contour feathers have these little Velcro kind of like barbs. So these barbs and barbules will hook together kind of like Velcro. And so to kind of rehook those, the birds will do what's called preening. So they can preen themselves and they can preen others in kind of a community kind of scenario. And that will allow those little barbules to be hooked back together. And then that allows for surface area for resistance that the flight feathers can fly then. So that's the preening. And like we said, the downy feathers are used for insulation. So adults will have them underneath their flight feathers, and little baby chicks, that's kind of what they only start with. The other big thing about birds is we are now to a fully four-chambered heart. So just like you have. So that's a big, big deal. That allows for maximum oxygenation of the blood when it goes out to the muscles then that way. So the blood will come in through the right atrium and then go through the valve to the right ventricle, where it will be put out to the pulmonary artery and to the lungs. And so then when it comes back to the heart, oxygenated now, it will come in through the left atrium and then come out through the left ventricle, and then the aorta will push that to the muscles of the bodies. So atriums are always what it comes in, and then ventricles is what it leaves the heart. So that right set, we're leaving the heart to go to the lungs and get oxygen. And then the left set, we are leaving the lungs, or leaving the heart to go to the rest of the body. So this is a major, major deal that now birds can be extremely active. Those muscles will have a continual supply of high oxygen blood. The other thing is the skeleton. So the skeleton is really lightweight. So the bones are hollow, and a bird is very misleadingly light. You know, you look at a bird and you think, oh, that thing's probably pretty heavy, a few pounds, and it might actually only be ounces. And so birds are very lightweight due to that hollow bone structure. Many of the bones that are fused together. So that breastbone kind of acts like a shape of a keel on a boat. And that's one of the bigger bones, and that's where that really strong muscle then for flapping the wings, the breast will be at. So if you've ever eaten a chicken breast, you know that's one of the bigger pieces of chicken on the bird, and that's because that's the biggest muscle, okay, and that's used for flapping those wings. And so that big keel-shaped breastbone then allows for a major muscle attachment for that. So that is some key features of the bird, that we are also warm-blooded. So we are endothermic. And that's also a big advantage because we can be active when it's cold out. Remember, our reptiles had the sun had to go in the sun and get that energy to get up to speed to where they could compete then to be a predator or keep from being food. But these guys are all the way around. In fact, if you notice that 40 to 42, humans are 37. So they're actually even a little bit more endothermic than we are. The downside, if you are going to maintain body heat, then that means you're going to have a lot more energy to do so, and that means you're going to have to intake a lot more food to do so. So that's why it's very important that birds have that downy feathers to insulate their body heat, so they don't lose it and waste it. So they don't have to supply new energy for that. So they're trying to be as efficient as possible. Lastly, so if we're class Aves, that means the orders would be these guys. And the scary part is there are up to 20 different orders of birds, scientific orders. That's the bad news. The good news is I'm not going to require you to know them. And then the other good news is over 60% of all of these are the passeriformes. And so these are the songbirds. Okay. So if you get caught on Cash Cab or Jeopardy or something and you have to pick an order of birds, scientific order, pick passeriformes because they are 60% or more. Typically, how we divide birds up into these orders is kind of by their beaks and feet. So what kind of feet do they have? Do they have long wading, walking kind of feet? Do they have swimming, kind of paddling kind of feet? Do they have perching like a songbird might have? Do they have talons for kind of a bird of prey? So what kind of feet do they have? And then what kind of beaks do they have? Do they have kind of a paddle shovel that helps kind of filter food, plant food in the lake? Do they have like a small insect catching beak? Do they have a bigger one that's used for cracking seas? Or does it have a very pointed kind of tearing predator kind of beak? So it just depends on what you are as to what kind of beak and feet you might have, and that will help us put you in the right scientific category for the orders. So that's a little bit about the class Aves, and I hope that was helpful.